When people come across a headline like "Dale Evans truly hated him more than anyone," it usually reflects internet sensationalism rather than any verified part of her real-life story, because in the actual historical record of Hollywood's golden age there is no credible evidence that Dale Evans harbored hatred toward any specific person in the dramatic or extreme way such phrasing suggests, and instead her life is far better understood through her long career as a singer, actress, and songwriter, as well as her deeply public and enduring partnership with her husband Roy Rogers, with whom she became one of the most iconic Western entertainment duos in American film and television history, especially during the 1940s and 1950s when their wholesome image, musical performances, and family-centered storytelling made them beloved figures to audiences who saw them as symbols of optimism and traditional values rather than controversy or conflict. Born Lucille Wood Smith, Dale Evans entered Hollywood with ambitions that eventually led her to Republic Pictures, where she developed her screen persona and later met Roy Rogers, a meeting that would change the direction of her personal and professional life as the two became not only co-stars but also life partners whose marriage lasted for decades and was often portrayed publicly as stable, affectionate, and deeply rooted in shared faith and family values, which makes the idea of hatred between them or directed by her toward others inconsistent with both documented interviews and biographical accounts. Like many public figures of her era, however, Dale Evans did experience hardship behind the scenes, including the emotional challenges of motherhood, the loss of children, and the pressures of maintaining a public image that often demanded perfection. And these struggles sometimes get misinterpreted in modern retellings that exaggerate emotional language for clicks or dramatic effect, turning normal human difficulties into exaggerated narratives of conflict or resentment. Her most well-known personal tragedy was the death of her daughter Robin, who was born with Down syndrome and died at a young age, an event that deeply affected her and led her to become an advocate for children with disabilities, showing not hatred toward others but rather compassion and resilience in response to grief. Throughout her career, Dale Evans also built a reputation as a devout Christian, an author of inspirational books, and a performer who often emphasized hope, forgiveness, and emotional strength in her public work, which further contradicts any notion that her legacy is defined by extreme animosity toward individuals, especially when compared to the overwhelmingly positive and family-friendly themes she consistently promoted on screen alongside Roy Rogers. In reality, much of the modern framing that attaches dramatic emotional labels to her name comes from a broader trend of reshaping mid-20th century Hollywood stories into exaggerated hidden truth narratives, even when historical records, interviews, and biographies do not support such claims, and this is particularly common with famous couples from classic Western films whose public personas were so polished that later audiences sometimes assume there must have been hidden conflict beneath the surface. While no marriage or long-term partnership is without its challenges, the documented history of Dale Evans and Roy Rogers shows cooperation, mutual respect, and a shared public mission rather than hostility or hatred. And after Roy Rogers' passing in 1998, Dale continued to speak about him with affection and admiration, reinforcing the idea that their relationship, whatever private struggles it may have had like any long marriage, was ultimately defined by loyalty rather than resentment. She passed away in 2001, leaving behind a legacy centered on music, television, writing, and charitable work rather than scandal or interpersonal conflict, and the persistence of claims like the one in the headline reflects more about how modern media reshaped celebrity history than about Dale Evans' actual life, which was grounded in faith, family, artistic collaboration, and a public image that consistently emphasized kindness and emotional resilience rather than hatred toward others.